Welcome to Direction Northeast. Hello, I'm Holly Carter. This program is a presentation of the Communications Department of Northeast State Community College. This episode of Direction Northeast takes a look at traditional Irish music and musicians. We'll meet our guest and start our discussion following these messages.
My name is Ann Rowell. I'm an actress, and I got my start at Northeast State Community College. Just as acting truly allows me to express myself and learn new things about myself, my whole experience at Northeast State has allowed me to do that. I've found new interests, new hobbies, new passions that I would have never known had I not come here. Northeast State gave me a quality education, amazing friendships, but most importantly, it allowed me to discover who I want to be.
Passion, authenticity, and precision are hallmarks of traditional Irish music. Our guests today are steeped in tradition and perform it with respect and creativity. They play traditional Irish music but blend it with bluegrass, American old-timey, and other Celtic traditions. The band's newest album, with Ricky Skaggs, has been hailed as a masterpiece by critics. Paul Brock, Manus McGuire, welcome to Direction Northeast.
Thank you, Holly.
How are you all today?
Very good.
Good. Let's start from the very beginning. How did the Brock-McGuire band get its start?
We were formed in the year 2000. Manus and I, we live in Ireland, and we've known each other through music for a long number of years at this stage. And we've been involved down through the years in various collaborations with different groups. And Manus would have been known for his involvement in a very famous Irish music band called Buttons and Bows. And after that, Manus and myself formed a band called Moving Cloud, which continued up to the year 2000, and then that was disbanded, and Manus and myself formed the band Brock-McGuire Band. And we formed it because of our common interest in Irish music, and because of our interest in getting our music out there to audiences both in Ireland and overseas. And we do a lot of work in America and have done since the very beginning. We tour a lot out here, and we've played all over North America. And we're very interested in coming out here because there's a very interesting journey and connection between Ireland and North America. And since the 1700s, the music of Ireland was brought out here by immigrants, initially by the Scots-Irish, who came out in huge numbers in the 1700s. And they came into the Appalachians and they brought the music with them, which today has influenced country, bluegrass, old-timey. And so as we travel around America, we're very interested in that journey of our music. And we can talk some more about that because you hear it also in Canada, in Quebec. You hear it in Eastern Canada, in Nova Scotia, Cape Breton, and so on. So we formed the band to get our music out there. It's a four-piece band. The instrumentation is Manus plays fiddle. I play Irish button-style accordion and melodeon. It's a single-row instrument. And the two other musicians in the band are very well-known musicians in Ireland. Gary O'Mara plays banjo, mandolin, and also sings. And Dennis Carey, who comes from a place called Newport in Tipperary. Dennis is a composer, arranger, and musician, very well-known for his compositions, and he plays piano. So just to fill out the detail maybe a little bit more, I'm from the Irish Midlands, originally a town called Athlone. Manus comes from Sligo, and both of us now live in different parts of County Clare, which is in the west of Ireland, and is known actually home and overseas as the home of Irish music, because of the numbers of Irish musicians who come from there or who live there, or the numbers of festivals which feature Irish music. But John Manus will add to what I say in terms of the origin of the band.
Right. that. So how did you all meet, since you were in different parts of Ireland?
Well, in terms of meeting, Ireland is a small country. So it's 350 miles from north to south and probably about 200 miles from east to west. So it's a small country, so people tend to know each other. So no matter where you go, inevitably you're going to run into somebody you know. So the musicians in Ireland pretty well know each other, and Manus and I would have met a long, long time ago through our common interest in the music.
Okay. You mentioned playing all the different instruments. What is your favorite instrument to play?
Well, for me, the fiddle. It's the only instrument that I play. But I do like other instruments. I love the guitar. I like the piano. And I suppose they would be my favorite instruments. But in Irish music, you hear a lot of the instruments that Paul spoke about: the accordion, the fiddle, the piano is played a lot, guitar, banjo. There's also uilleann pipes, very common in Irish music. The flute, the concert flute, is played widely in Irish music. So, and there are different areas, even though we're such a small country, 4 million people, there are different areas around Ireland where some of these instruments are more prominent than others. For example, in Sligo, in the northwest part of Ireland where I grew up, the fiddle would be the predominant instrument. Just south of Sligo, around Roscommon and County Leitrim, which are nearby, the flute would be the big instrument there. And the accordion would have had prominence in the Midlands counties, near where Paul is from. You know, Westmeath, Offaly, all around that area would be very well known for its accordion music over the years. So different regions tend to have an instrument associated with them. Not always, but that does happen.
The traditional instruments of Ireland are really the harp, and the harp is used as, it's used on all our coinage. We're the only country in the world that features a musical instrument on our coinage, as far as I know. And so the harp has been our national instrument, and still is our national instrument. And so if you go to Ireland, you can go into Trinity College in Dublin and see the famous Brian Boru harp, which dates from the 12th century and is beautifully preserved there. And then pipes in the Irish tradition are known as uilleann pipes. Uilleann is the Irish for elbow, and they're played by a bellows which is attached to the elbow, unlike the Scottish pipes where you blow into them. And they're very complex instrument, the uilleann pipes. And then, as Manus said, down through the years, a lot of other instruments have been added into the tradition, so that by the 1800s, instruments like what I play, the accordion, the concertina, the banjo came into Irish music in the mid-1800s. And its arrival is interesting because a minstrel group from America called the Virginia Minstrels visited Europe and came to Ireland in 1847. And the Virginia Minstrels, was led by a man called Joel Walker Sweeney, who had an Irish background, and that group brought the banjo in for the first time.
Wow.
So, and then later instruments that Manus mentioned, like the guitar, the piano, the bouzouki, the Greek instrument, has actually been adopted into Irish music, and various forms of flutes, whistles, and so on.
So out of all those, which one is your favorite?
Depends on what music genre you're talking about. I mean, in my own case, with traditional music, I've just been attached to the accordion from a very young age. But I have a wide interest in lots of other music. So I love guitar, I love piano, and I love voice.
So what age did you first learn to play the accordion, and for you, the fiddle?
For me, the fiddle, I think I was about 10 when I started to play. And my older brother was playing the fiddle at that time, and my dad was teaching him. So it probably was a little bit easier for him to teach me as well, and do the two of us together. So
you have
I was about 10.
Okay, so you have a musical family background.
Yes, yes.
What about you?
In my case, I had an uncle who had a shop that sold bicycles, radios, and musical instruments, and that's where I saw for the first time as a young boy an accordion, and I asked him could I try one of the instruments in his window, in his shop window. Turned out to be a small melodeon, and I was 8 at the time, and my first effort on it was a tune called the Doggy in the Window, which was popular at the time in the pop parade. How much is the doggy in the window? Long time ago. So.
All right. Do you remember the first tune that you played on the fiddle, and like what that meant to you?
I'm trying to think back, Holly, what was the first tune I learned? It may have been a little hornpipe that my dad was teaching my brother at the time, called Tomorrow Morning. And it was an easy tune to play, and it involved me learning the bow hand as well as the fiddle notation. So I think that was the first one, but don't hold me to that.
Okay. So who would you all say would be your biggest inspiration to do what you do?
In my case, I've listened to, from a very early age, as much music as possible within the Irish tradition, but I'm also interested in music in general. And so I, from my teenage years, from 14, 15 years of age, I was listening to a lot of jazz. I listened to opera, I listened to world music, I listened to folk music, I listened to all good music, and have dipped in and got inspiration from lots of different people in lots of different ways. And actually, probably one of my biggest inspirations is a tenor, an Irish tenor, a man called John McCormack, who came from my hometown and who was sort of the Luciano Pavarotti of the early 1900s and was hugely successful, sold 200 million, 78 recordings worldwide. And he was enormously popular, but he was a wonderful singer of Irish ballads, popular Irish song, leader, opera, and listening to him, I learned an awful lot about music, so he was a big inspiration.
Right. What about you, Manus?
For me, listening to the recordings of the old Sligo fiddle players who recorded here in America, people like Michael Coleman, James Morrison and Paddy Cloran, they would have been early influences for me when I was a young boy, maybe 10, 11, 12 years of age. And then another fiddle player living in New York with a Sligo background, although not from Sligo originally, like the other men I mentioned, a man called Andy McGuire was a big influence on me. I loved his fiddle playing, and I tried to play like him, So they were big. So my musical influences, a little bit unlike Paul, would have been much more confined to the Irish music idiom. I did like listening to other music as well. When I was in my teenage years, I liked listening to classical music. Fritz Kreisler, I loved his music.
I should have mentioned too the influence of American popular music, because in the late 50s I was totally hooked on the world of Buddy Holly, Roy Orbison, the Everly Brothers, Johnny Cash, all of those. They were hugely inspirational and part of my kind of musical upbringing. And I was delighted to see some of the posters in the studio here. Beautiful posters. So.
Wow.
And just on that too, last year and 2 years previously, we were very fortunate to get the chance to play down in Lubbock, Texas, where Buddy Holly was from. And so we very much enjoyed playing down there at Texas Tech in Lubbock. That was his home place, Lubbock.
I also understand that you have performed at the Grand Ole Opry. What was that like? How would you describe it?
A wonderful experience, but it was the culmination of a recording that we did with the great Ricky Skaggs and other great musicians in the Nashville area. We came in contact with Ricky probably about 6-7 years ago, and were very interested in bluegrass music, and Ricky is very interested in Irish music because he grew up in Kentucky, but from the time he was a young boy he was listening to the old-time fiddle players who connect back to Irish music and Scottish music. And so we used to, when we were on tour, we used to visit Ricky in Hendersonville, where he lives, if he happened to be in town. And over a period of time we wound up sort of jamming with him in his recording studios, and one thing led to another, and eventually we did the album Greengrass Bluegrass, which is a celebration of the connection between Irish and Appalachian music. And we recorded that in his studio in Nashville over probably 4 or 5 day period, and then when eventually the album was finished and launched, we launched it with him at a live performance at the Grand Ole Opry. So it was a special moment for us because not too many Irish traditional bands have performed at the Opry. I think we're one of the very few. And so the experience of walking on stage with Ricky Skaggs and other great of the national musicians to an audience of 4,600 to perform live was a great experience.
Wow. Yeah, I see that you all tour a lot. What are some of the pros of touring and then some of the cons?
I think the pros are that you're, while you're on the road and getting to different venues, that you're meeting new people and you're spreading you're networking and you're spreading the message of our music far and wide, hopefully. That would be a big pro with it. And getting out there and meeting new people and making new connections all the time is it's very important for us, as you can imagine, Holly. The cons are, I suppose, are that you're away from home, but I think the pros very much outweigh the cons. I mean, we enjoy touring.
I think a big pro for me is the respect for the music out here and the level of appreciation on the part of audiences for what we do. And that's immensely satisfying that people come out to attend a concert of ours and the whole focus is on appreciating the music, soaking it up, getting a context on the background to what we do, and they'll have a glass of wine or a cup of coffee at the break and then they go home. And it's that to me is so satisfying that the whole focus is on the appreciation of the music, and that's what we find as we travel around America. That level of appreciation is, as I said, very gratifying.
Right, so that makes it all worth.
That makes it worthwhile. I mean, the downside for me is the actual travel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the fun went out of getting to airports and boarding aeroplanes a long time ago.
All right, so what would you both say that the Brock McGuire Band stands for?
I think it stands for Irish music as it was originally intended to be played. That'd be the first thing I would say. So it's very much Irish music, but in more recent times, because of what you've just heard here in the last few minutes, we've spread our wings a little bit in the sense that we've incorporated bluegrass tradition into our music as well, and other old-timey American pieces. So it is Irish music to the core, but it has a little bit extra added in there into our program that might make it a little bit more appealing for a general wider audience.
But we're part of an amazing tradition. We have one of the richest musical heritages in the world that's now commonly accepted. And even though we're a tiny country, this extraordinary music has been handed on from generation to generation for hundreds and hundreds of years. So we're keepers of that. And we try to carry on that tradition. And we try to remain true to that tradition and to retain the integrity of the music that's uppermost in our minds. So what we do, we try to do it with sensitivity and to remain at all times true to this tradition. Our music has gone global. It's been played everywhere now, all over the world. And I suppose that comes in the wake of the success of dance shows like Riverdance and Lord of the Dance. And now you can go to China and Chinese musicians are playing Irish music. In Russia, Russians are playing our music, and it's amazing the number of young people who are coming to Ireland just to experience our music, to learn our music, and to be part of it.
Right, so how does it feel to be known all around the world and have such a large fan base?
It feels good.
Did you ever think that would be possible?
No, you don't seriously think about that. But I mean, it's nice that people do recognise what you're doing, which is what I think you're asking, Holly. But no, you don't consciously think, oh, are more people going to know us because of this? If it happens, it happens.
I think we're just lucky to be part of this amazing tradition. We're just very fortunate to be part of that.
So
And
tell me a little bit more about the Irish traditional music.
well, the music, as I said, has been handed down orally for many, many centuries. We talked about the instruments of the music. I suppose if you talk about the characteristics of the music, you could maybe compare it to jazz in that the musicians within the tradition have free range to express themselves, to improvise, to put their own individual interpretation on the music they perform. It's music that kind of connects instantly with people. That's people who haven't been exposed to it before respond very, very quickly to the music. And we see that all the time, and that's very satisfying when you perform for an audience perhaps that has never heard Irish music, and you see the reaction. And when you see that reaction, that it has this facility to connect very, very quickly and to move people very, very quickly. And of course, the breadth of our music as well. I mean, we have dance music, which usually is reels, jigs, hornpipes, slides, polkas. Music that's originally was intended for dance, but now is being played more and more for listeners. And but apart altogether from that, there's a very strong song tradition in Ireland, with a huge number of songs, as you might imagine, written on so many themes: everyday life, emigration, sporting heroes, wars, battles, you name it. And so you have the song tradition that's in there. And if I give you one figure, Holly, just to give you a sense of, like I mentioned, reels, jigs, hornpipes, there at this point in time, there are 16,000 of those that are documented, 16,000. So it gives you a sense of the breadth of and the depth of what we have. Interestingly, one of the main collectors out here in America of Irish music was a man called Francis O'Neill. He came from Cork, from Bantry in the south of Ireland. He travelled the world, he did all sorts of jobs. He came to Missouri, worked as a teacher in the late 1800s, wound up in Chicago, joined the police force, became the head of the police in Chicago by the early 1900s, and he collected the music from the Irish emigrant musicians who were in America at the time, fortunately for us, because working with a company in Chicago called Line and Healy, he published 2 major collections of Irish music, which to this day are sort of the Bible for us, for Irish musicians, the O'Neill collections. So that's Francis O'Neill.
All right. Well, just to wrap things up, I've got one last question for you, and that is, what is your favorite part about performing when you step on stage?
About performing, I think the favourite part would be to get an audience who responds to your music early on. And it's a two-way thing. Paul alluded to it there a few moments ago, a two-way thing where, you know, you get the reaction back from the audience and it spurs you on to play even to a higher level as best you can. You always do your best anyway, but this will spur you on to get a connection with the audience and to have an audience who appreciate the music, which happens a lot over here. There'd be great things to spur you on and to make it the whole thing much more enjoyable for you. Okay. And an audience who really gets sucked into the whole thing early on.
Feedback.
Feedback.
That's the big
feedback would be.
Thank you. We'll be back in just a moment with the performance.
My name is Jason Tipton. I'm a manufacturing technician for A.O. Smith, and I got my start at Northeast State. As part of my job here, I do design work with CAD, and those plans are implemented throughout the factory. And I continue to use a lot of what I've learned at Northeast State on a daily basis. I'm the type person that likes working with my hands, and now that I've got a degree from Northeast State, I'm able to do something I enjoy. In manufacturing, it's important to have the right tool for the job. Having an education from Northeast State has been that tool for my career.
That concludes the program for today. We have talked about traditional Irish music and musicians. Ladies and gentlemen, the McGuire Band.